Welcome to another edition of Drummer Nation, the show where we talk drums, drumming, and drummers with some of the best in the world, and today is no exception. My name is Michael. My friends call me Vaz. Say hello to my trusty co-host and partner in crime, Adam Nussbaum.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be anywhere.
What's up this week with you, Adam?
Well, all's well. I went to a fantastic concert the other day at Kutztown University. The singer Kurt Elling was there, and he brought a stellar group with him. They were doing the music of Weather Report, and he's written a lot of lyrics to a lot of the songs. A lot of the ones that aren't generally thought of, and the band was great. It was Joey Calderazzo, Mike Moreno, Essiet, and our good friend Peter Erskine was playing drums. And that was a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody. Peter gave a fantastic clinic in the afternoon, and John Riley was there also. So it was just nice to be with the tribe.
Good friends all across the board there. Yeah.
Amen. And everyone sounded wonderful, and it was good for the soul.
Well, we have another wonderful guest for you today. His name is Henrique de Almeida. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. I love your show. I listen to your show all the time when I go for my morning walk here in Colorado, and it's an honor to be here, especially with Adam Nussbaum, which is, in my humble opinion, one of the best drummers in the world and a legend. Little bit intimidating, but
He's
it's an honor.
embarrassed. He's
It's an
embarrassed now
honor.
too. So,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about you because I know you're from Brazil originally, right?
Yeah, I was born in Brazil, but right before I do that, I just want to say one thing. Adam just mentioned he saw Kurt Allen. I heard a version of him doing Resolution, uh, Coltrane, and he
Mhm.
put lyrics. It was unbelievable. Anyway,
I've seen
it's
him live too.
amazing.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did the trip? How'd you get to? How'd you get here?
So I was born in Brazil, and my dad was a chemical engineer, but he loved jazz. So I grew up in Brazil, listened to all kinds of music. But he had uh, LPs with um, Satchmo, Louis Armstrong, Harry James, Benny Goodman, Buddy Rich. I mean, he had a lot of jazz records, and he also had a lot of orchestral things that are very unique. So I grew up listening to jazz, although I was in Brazil. And in Brazil at the time, I was born in 65. Everything that happened in Europe and the United States influenced South America economically. So Brazilians, at the time, I was aware of, Rush and all the rock bands and jazz bands, plus Afro-Cuban and Brazilian. So it's a very eclectic way
Mhm.
to grow up playing. Music is on every house, of course, playing Brazilian percussion. And I start touring in Brazil very young when I was 16 with Francis Haim, a piano player that's partnered with John Jobim. And then I got a gig with Alceu Valença, which was a mega pop star in Brazil. And then I tour Europe and US in the 80s. I visit Berklee, freaked out, Berklee College of Music. Quit touring with this band, spent a year preparing to go to Berklee, went to Berklee in 88. That's where I met John Ramsey. I graduated in jazz composition, start playing with a lot of big bands. In the 80s, we still had big band leftovers. So I played with the Buddy Rich Band version in Boston, Roy Pomeroy, Phil Wilson, Wayne Knowles, a lot of big bands. And a lot of fusion music, playing with a lot of fusion guys. And then I didn't want to go to New York because of lifestyle and stuff like that. So I went to Southern Miss, got a master's degree under Dr. John Wooten, got a master's in performance, joined the Air Force Band, of all things, the Air Force Academy Band, and
Good
working for
band.
the, yeah, so that I had to do marching band, country band, rock, concert band, big band. And then I resigned from that when Mike Mangini quit Berkeley to join Dream Theater. They looking for a position, so I apply. I think they had 80 guys, 60, 50, 15, five finalists. I got was me, the guy from The Voice, Billy Joe's drummer, a teacher, Tony Thunder Smith, and myself. I got the gig, so I went to Berklee in 2011 as a teacher. Now I became a full professor there from 11 to about 19. I loved the job, was amazing, but I just didn't like the lifestyle, the commute. Everything on the job was amazing, but I had two boys at the time. My family, they are now older, 14 and 17. So I decided to take a year of leave of absence. I came here, opened the studio, and blew up. And then the pandemic hit. I became a full professor at Berklee online and
Mm.
doing this. And then I quit Berklee, and now I have the drumsetcoach.com is an online school. And I have the Drum Set Coach Academy is a school. We close on Fridays, is my day off, but I teach here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, and Saturdays all day. And we opened the brick and mortar on the spring of 2020, and we over 7,200 sessions. We teach about 30 lessons a week, and then on the weekends I have labs online. I was a course designer for Berklee, so I designed a lot of courses. I took them with me, and we teach beginners, total beginners, and we work with people like Dave Garibaldi, Bill Gibson, Mark Walker. I teach guys that are touring right now, and so
Mm.
we have a range. But I'm semi-retired. I have we have something called the jazz room at the school. It's a very little school. We have 30 seats here, and that's my venue. That's what I play with my band. I do concerts here. We do tickets online, and I don't need to depend on club owners or stores to give clinic. It's just my wife and I and a couple of other people. So I'm my own boss. I park for free on the front. I'll be 60 in August, and I really like. I created my own little ecosystem,
Good for
and
you, man. You
don't
know,
tour anymore. Don't just
now that everybody's saying that I was wondering the other day, are we just turning into grumpy old men, or is the music business really in the doldrums? And it's probably some of both. But I salute what you've done, which is to say, I'm just going to take the ball. I'm going to take the bull by the horns and make something that I create and own. And good for you, man. I think a lot more people need to do those kinds of things. Sorry, that's Art
yeah.
Blakey calling in.
It takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith,
Hmm.
and it's a risk. It paid off because when I told John Rams was my boss for a long time. He was the
He was the
chairman of.
chair at in Berkeley, right?
Yeah, then Omar Hakim was there for a few years after that. But when I told him I was going to quit to do this, he loves me. John Rams is the only guy in the U.S. that knows me from the second day I came here. I flew from Brazil on a Sunday. My audition with him was Monday, and he's the only guy that knows me from the second day I am here, from '88 to now. So he's like a father figure to me on drums, right? He's my drum papa. But he knows Erica and he knows my boys, and he was really worried, man. He was really concerned about my decision because I was giving him a heads up. I said, "Hey, I'm a little burned out. I love the job, but I was really burned out full time."
Hmm.
And I he took me to lunch. He was really concerned. He said, "Why don't you take a sabbatical?" And that's what I did. But then later, he after he talked to my wife, he said he was very encouraged on the end. He was not approving, but then he said, "You know what? If there is one guy that might pull this off, it's you." And then he gave me his blessing, and man, I feel very lucky because my whole life I was a sideman, and I try to teach this here to the students. I think there is two things, and I would like to ask you guys what do you think about this. I see myself now looking at drums two ways. I see the art of drumming, and being a professional drummer. I think the art of drumming for me nowadays is like when I start playing drums, I don't know how to explain. There is nothing to do with the music business, with making money, making a living. I was not thinking about any of that. I just played because I love to play. I just love to play. It's jazz. I left my culture, my country, I left everything for jazz, to go study jazz because, drum set is a jazz instrument and I love to play jazz. Don't ask me why because you can't make a lot of money
It hits your soul. That's why. That's your soul,
It's
man.
the art of drumming. And you see somebody like Adam, for instance, right? I watch your clinic, and there's things that you say. I mean, the amount of people that you played, the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that you played this music. It's like yesterday I was teaching a guy. He was asking about jazz waltz, how to play a jazz waltz, and we spent was a class that was supposed to be an hour with those guys and ended up being 2 hours because it's like I started playing some examples and I realized it's not from books. It's like it depends. We listen to some big band swing in, yes, big band in 3/4, jazz trio in 3/4. It depends. And I didn't want to tell them, but it's like, man, this is a lifetime. I don't know if I can explain that to you guys.
Right.
And then the other side, you know, making a living as a drummer, I had to. It's different because I had to read, know styles, get the proper gear, deal with people, and I made money serving other people. Nobody called me to go and say, Henrique, we're so glad you're here. We hired you to express yourself as you wish. Or they never said, do you like our music? They just say, hey, can you do this job? And I had to play whatever they want, the way they want. I was not lucky enough to be on a band where I was a equal partner. I was a side guy. I was a hired gun. You
I've
have
always
to.
said I've never been in a band. I was always a hired gun.
Wow,
Even
yeah.
when I did a steady at doing everything for the Ritz in Atlanta, the Ritz Carlton, and it was a gig where it went on for 30 years. Somebody did it before me, somebody did it after me, and if the piano player left, they got a new piano player. But you weren't in a band, really. You weren't hired as a band. You're hired as a musician to come in and do what's supposed to be done, and that's most of what we do as a living, don't you think?
Yeah, remember dancing jobs? Remember those gigs that you show up in a hotel or whatever in the ballroom, and
Of
you don't know
course.
anybody on that freaking band. You don't know
Right.
anybody, and
Right.
they have a book. You remember those yellow looking papers professionally? This is before finale and all that.
Professional copyist.
And there
Yep.
is a number. You set up the drum. You introduce to the band like 10 minutes before the gig, and whoever is the leader look at you and say 49,
That's
and you
right.
put that thing on, and he counts, and you got to play.
And you're rolling, man. That's it, baby.
So what do you guys think about? Because I tell my students, I say to them, I say, you can do whatever you want, do what's in your heart, but let's talk about the consequences of your choices. If you want to work more, you
Hmm.
gotta, it. And I asked them, what is the difference between an amateur drummer and a professional drummer? They never get the right answer from me. Is the professional drummer gets paid, right?
Yeah.
To do what? To provide a service, to use their skills to make that situation, to make the music better, to make
Hmm.
whoever is hiring you. But how do you balance? There is guys that ignore all that and still make like Elvin Jones. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that on the beginning, people didn't know how to deal with Alvin because he was playing. I heard this from different people that he just said, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with this. I'm gonna be myself and play like that all the time. And what somebody told me was not until he hooked up with Coltrane that all made sense. But was people are not ready for that.
Right.
So what do you guys think about the
Adam,
balance between the art of drumming and being out on the workforce? And I know you can do both, but I think they're like they require different hats. Maybe what do you guys think about that?
Adam, jump in.
Well, you said a word that I think is extremely important and something that has to be realized, and that's a balance. Um, I've always been somebody where I listen to what the music is, I listen to who's playing it, how they're playing it, and I try to use my intuition and my experience to help to facilitate that situation as best I can. My first responsibility is when I'm called for a situation. At this point, people are usually calling me because they know me and they want what I can bring to the situation. I've rarely had band leaders tell me what to do. I'm there because they like what I do. But the thing that I find is necessary is you have to gain the trust of the other musicians. And like having a relationship with somebody, once you gain trust, then you can get down into it. And then it can go from, not how are you doing to,
Hmm.
hey, baby, how you feeling?
Right.
And I enjoy very much being able to facilitate different situations because any people always say to me, what was your favorite gig? I can't think of any one in particular. I've been able to learn something from everyone I've played with. And you have to be somebody who realizes that we, as drummers, we really create the sonic environment for what a job is and what the music is. The quickest way to change the sound of a band is generally change the drummer because we create the atmosphere and everything. And I enjoy having that flexibility. I love playing with somebody like a Michael Brecker, and at the same time, I love playing with somebody like a James Moody. These guys are very different, but they both play great. And I try to get in, and it's not when I'm in a band, it's not about me, it's about we and how we can work together as a team. And the thing that I think is very important now more than ever is that young musicians that now have more information at their disposal with, this and the computer and everything, they still have to play with others. And you got to get this together. You got to get your ears together and you have to serve the music. What is the music telling you to play?
That's right.
And these are things that are necessary. And I think for me, I don't feel like I've had to like, oh, I've never thought, a lot of people say, oh, it's a dumb gig. I say, how can the gig be dumb? The only dumb thing is your attitude. If you're able to play music with others and get a little bit of a smile in your pocket and have everybody go, yeah, baby, felt good. What else is there?
Yeah.
And so I enjoy the process of whatever it is. I have an open mind. I feel very fortunate that from early on in my, you know, playing this instrument, I was grateful to play with people that played better than me, and that's helped to up my game.
Yeah.
And I also was in situations where I got to play when I was quite young with band leaders that gave me a green light, meaning they wanted me to hit. One of my first gigs was with Dave Liebman. He'd already played
Woo.
with Miles and Elvin and Chick Corea. You know, it wasn't like I was playing with a singer who was like, keep it down, keep it down. It's like, I'm there, I'm trying to hit. And then he's looking at me like, is that all you got for me? Now, so what I needed to learn was I needed to learn how to take all that and be able to focus it. Learn how to be exciting, not be excited, learn how to bring that energy and that power. But, I had to learn how to bring things down. Band leaders still wanted fire. Stan Getz still wanted the fire and the heat, but he didn't want the volume. So you had to be able to channel that. So I was fortunate that, I had to learn to bring it in instead of learning how to, come on, baby, where are you? What's happening?
Well,
So,
you had that already, yeah. Well, let me
Hey,
let me have
can,
a I have a little different perspective.
yeah.
It's about the personal dynamics of the individuals. If I'm producing a record and I call Adam Nussbaum, I want Adam to bring Adam. I'm not going to tell him what
yeah.
to do. I'm not going to expect anything except for him to be his creative, beautiful, wonderful self. And that's why he's there. But if I get hired to play the Barnum and Bailey Circus, They're not interested in me being me. You know, they want you to play the gig and to just cover the gig the way it is. And in all instances, you're going to use your ears and make it fit. But in some instances where you're a jazz artist, you bring you to the bandstand, and that's why you're there. If Taylor Swift needs a new drummer, the new guy is not going to be there to put his personal signature into the band.
Yeah.
So it all depends on that. And in the jazz idiom, we celebrate originality. We celebrate creativity. We celebrate, like Dizzy said, we never play it the same way once.
Yeah.
So that's I'm agreeing with Adam 100%.
Yeah.
But he's an artist who's called upon to be himself. I get called to be whatever they need it to be, and the older I get now, the more they call me to be me. But there is that difference.
Yeah, now I have a band now that I'm like mostly teaching. I have a band called the Truth Project Band, which is like nobody's telling me what to do. I play the music I love, the way I love. I got this drum set. Bill Gibson and Dave, they came here June, and Dave is gonna be here in June. Dave Garibaldi, and Bill's drums. Bill played with Hugh Lewis and the News. Big drums.
Right.
And Dave has a very specific way to tune his drums to play with Tower of Power Studio. And my drum set right now is a Sonor drums on the stage there, and it's like a 14-inch bass drum. It's 8, 8, 10, 13, 13, 14, and everything rings, right? Because in Brazil, you grow up listening to surdo, boom, do, boom, do. Everything rings. Everything is ringing. No, nobody was thinking about how to mic that to sell records or anything like that. But finally, I can play it the way we should talk about that in a minute because before we start here, Mike and I were talking about how drum is changing in the new generation. And I still like melodies. I still like to have melodic sounds on my drums
Hmm.
besides the rhythm. But I have a question for Adam. You mentioned that you had to learn how to be focused, right? Can you, since you like one of the all-time masters, I'm gonna indulge myself here because I wanna learn. I wanna learn this from you because you like one of the guys that did that a lot. And the process that you're talking about when you come to the gig, in my opinion, takes a lifetime to acquire the knowledge, test the knowledge, and then become wise. And you mentioned mentorship, which is lacking now. When you go on the road with somebody like Phil Wilson, he's a master. I got the knowledge, but he was telling me, he was helping me to make better decisions because I was very young. I was 20 something. It, and as you go older, you can say, okay, when this happens, if I go this way, always work. I think that's like you acquire the knowledge. You have to test the knowledge, which means you gotta fail at some point or get feedback, and then you become wise. And I think a wise drummer is the guy that lives so much and plays so many gigs. They can usually get the right thing right away because the stuff that you're talking about, Adam, sometimes, yeah, I don't know if you agree, is instant. All that process that you talking about, sometimes it's milliseconds, and you gotta adjust with that band. But can you elaborate? Can you teach us a little bit more about what you? Because you said you have to bring it, you have to focus. One of the things you mentioned was dynamics. There was anything else what was that process of you say, I wanna be really expressive, but now you focus. How can we learn that a little bit more from you? How can we bring our drumming to that type of focus?
Well, it is a process. I love the acronym for the word time. This I must earn. This stuff, it takes time, and the the reality of the time we're living in now, because of all this, all the youngsters are want everything instantly. I'm going to ask Google. I'm going to ask Siri. This you can't ask Siri how to do this. You can't. There's no instant way to do it. I just have gratitude for all the situations I've been in playing with. I was always the youngster. playing with older musicians. I must have had something going on. I guess I had a nice beat. I didn't know anything. But guys figured, okay, he's got a nice beat. He'll figure out all this other stuff. But, you know, so much of what we learn, when you think about it, is monkey see, monkey do. How'd you learn how to walk? You didn't read a book. How'd you learn how to talk? You didn't read a book. You listened, you watched, and you tried, and you failed, and you failed, and you kept failing, and eventually you get it together. So over time, this stuff happens, and you have to have an open enough ear to want to bring these things in. I mean, I feel like I'm a product of everything that's happened to me up to this moment. you know,
Adam, tell them the
Ev-
levels of competency, the 4 levels of competency.
well, I think there were these gentlemen, Dunning and Kruger. There was the first thing, you're unconsciously incompetent. You stink and you don't know it, but you think you sound good. Yeah, baby, I'm happening. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's not happening, but you don't even know it's not happening. So then somebody may pull your coat and say, this isn't happening. So you're unconsciously incompetent. Then you have that little bell go off. You become consciously incompetent. I suck and I know it. Okay. To be blatant. Then it's like, okay, I'm incompetent. Now you work hard to become consciously competent. That's why we practice, so we can work at the process. Then you get to the point, hopefully, where you become unconsciously competent, where you can just sit down and do it.
Yeah,
Now,
that's it.
we have to do microsecond adjusting and listening to everything on a nanosecond level. Because sometimes you're on the gig, you have to adjust to something. So you may get pulled in from, number four, the fourth gear to third gear. Oh, I need to make this little adjustment. But the whole thing that I think of is don't think,
Yeah, yeah,
pay
yeah,
attention.
yeah.
You think when you practice. As soon as you start thinking while you're on the gig, you're in trouble.
That's right.
The whole thing, for me, I'm a legato head. I'm a flow guy. Whatever I play, I want it to flow. So I never want to have groovis interruptus. So I'm trying to get in to what's happening. Everybody you play with, well, first of all, whatever room you're playing in, you have to adjust to the acoustic reality of the situation. You're in one venue one day, the drums sound great. You're in another venue another day. It's like, what's going on, man?
Yeah,
Or
You
even
know,
across the
you
street the same day.
yeah, same thing. You have to adjust.
Hmm.
Oh, my drums sounded great yesterday. What happened to them? Nothing happened to them. It's the environment.
that's right.
You have to adjust. So you have to play the room. You have to be able to hear everybody. If you're playing too loud and you can't hear somebody, you got to play softer. I mean, you have to adjust all this. Everybody you play with is going to have a different sound.
That's right.
Everybody's going to articulate the time in a different way. I have to try to bring things together. I have to try to help center a situation and try to, put the grease on everything and get kumbaya with everybody.
That's right.
And I don't know there's no magic answer to this.
Yeah.
This is something
Well,
that
those are some
takes
good
time.
answers
And
you're giving right there. That's a great answers.
well, I think what's very, very important for me as a young drummer, I was so fortunate to get to play with some more experienced bass players.
Hmm.
Because drums play with bass, bass play with drummers. The best thing for a young drummer, play with an experienced bass player. Best thing for a young bass player, play with an experienced drummer. You got to get the spittle a ding and the ickety boom working in harmony.
I
Yeah.
You
took a
know,
lesson or 2 years ago with John Clayton, who's a bass player. Let's play music, man. I'll record it. We'll talk about it, and I learned a hell of a lot.
yeah.
He's
I
not a
mean,
drummer.
it's
Yeah.
for me, it's kind of fascinating because I still feel in here I'm that kid, but that's many moons ago.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
it's
still have that curiosity and that hunger, and it's interesting to be in the third of life now and go, wow, I pinch myself out of the gratitude I have to the people that hired me along the way. I should have been paying them for what I got to learn from them.
Let me jump into a quote from Henrique. I got this from your website. There's a thread in this music. What they have in common is these little rhythmic cells, things that are actually from Africa and other ancient places. This is in Brazilian music, Afro-Cuban music. It's in Calypso, New Orleans music. There's a little musical DNA that's in all of them. It's like cooking. I love this. If you understand what curry does, what salt does, what pepper does, what garlic does, what olive oil does, you can play with food. I tell that to my students in every class. I don't want them to play rhythms. I want them to play with rhythms.
yeah, with the rhythms. I tell my students like, imagine like I teach a lot of classes, polyrhythms, molar technique. So they come to a class and I tell them, I'm gonna give you a gift, but when you got a gift, you don't go to the store when you're a kid and buy a bunch of toys and put on the shelf, right? You gotta play with the rhythms, right? You have to play with the rhythms, and I love with what Adam said about flow. My whole thing is flow, 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 flow. And I'm that every teacher is different. Every teacher teaches a little different. But the way I teach my students how to flow, because I am talking about improvisation, music, right? Improvisation. In June, Dave Garibaldi is gonna come again to our. We have a summer camp the last week of June, and Dave is gonna spend a whole week here, and he's gonna talk about groove and how to develop your own voice, and yep, and
Keep going.
how to. He has a lot of great insights on how to practice and develop your ideas. But I'll be talking about flow, right? How to flow and solo and improvise. And one of the things that I like to do is to start with things that goes together first, right? It's almost like if if you jumping from the curb to the road, it's just a little jump. It's easier to flow like that than started jumping from a larger place. And then
It's a good point.
the stuff that I was talking about. Do you know who Jamie Haddad is?
Oh, he's a good friend of mine.
So so I was hanging with him at Berkeley many years ago in his office. James Haddad is we don't like drummers sometimes play with another drummer, right? Did you ever did that with friends, right? And some guys, I just had a clinician here and we tried to play together, and I'm not gonna mention name, but everything I played, he was always on the same place that I was. And James Haddad, he was amazing to play drums with because was always like a conversation. He find it like playing with a band, and he blew me away because he showed me some Middle Eastern music,
Hmm.
some Brazilian music. So he played me this thing that has this and then we saw some Brazilian music, and then he played me some Alvin Jones, and I could. That's the first time that quote comes from that hang with Jamie because if you realize sometimes Alvin Giting, but that boom, that is that la that king, that tick bing. It's a,
Hmm.
it's almost
It's
like a
Afro-Cuban.
clave, like
Yeah.
he's playing a clave or something.
Hmm.
And he embellishes that, and it's unbelievable. On time is of the essence, Michael Brecker record. They have a song in there. I can't remember the name of the song, but Elvin is playing on that song, and he takes a solo on the end, and he plays like a little cloud. Yeah. Can you name the track for us there? And I'll tell you which one it is. I think it's that one that goes. Ba-da-da, ba-ba, ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-ba-lee, ba-ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-ba-ba-bum, and boom, tiddle-leedle-dum, tiddle. Adam does that all the time. I have seen Adam doing
Well,
the same
I
thing.
don't know, you know.
Like
Well,
it's
Elvin's one of my daddies, you know.
yeah, I know. But I have seen you doing that. Like I don't know if you're thinking like that, but it's like a little clavish structure that you can embellish and embellish and embellish. And you see that on New Orleans music, you see that on funk music, you see that on calypso. But to go back to
And
flow,
Brazilian. Let's not forget Brazilian.
absolutely. Um,
Well, let
so
me ask you something. I don't want
yeah,
to interrupt your point, but Brazilian music has fit in so wonderfully with jazz music.
yes,
What?
sir.
Why so?
Uh,
Is it
I
the
think
improvisation?
I think one of the things that I like about Brazilian music is like let's talk about a music that I know a little bit, but I really don't like as much, like thrash metal, heavy metal. Very strong rhythm, very loud, very powerful. But in my opinion, there is not a lot of sophisticated harmony melodies, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then you have sometimes music that has nice melodies, but doesn't have strong rhythms. I think Brazilian music, which is, I shouldn't even say that because what are you talking about? Brazilian music, we have so many different styles there, but a lot of Brazilian music that I like has beautiful melodies, very sophisticated harmonies, and amazing rhythms. It's like Jaco. Remember Jaco? Jaco had the chops, right? Like he had a lot of chops, but he also played beautiful melodies and beautiful. I mean, all those three things were there. It's like the first time I saw Tony playing live, Tony Williams, and the last thing on my mind was drumming. I thought I was on the front of a priest or something. It's like he played things that are technically so advanced. And I was with Alan Dawson for many many years. I was with Alan from '88 to '95, and I also was with Gary Chafee for from '88 until 2019, on and off. But
I'm jealous.
Yeah, me too.
yeah, Gary, I have a video of him passing the baton. He said, "Take over the systems." I wrote a book called Polyrhythm Possibilities, Volume Two, and it's an extension of Gary's stuff. Very very advanced. Very. It's really for people who really love the instrument. It's intense. But Alan, I used to go to his house, which is now John Ramsey's house,
Right.
and I'll take. This is before internet, before iPhone, before GPS. I would take the subway to, and then take the train to the last station, get out of the train, walk for a while, take the bus, and then walk to Alan's house. Gary was the same way, but those two teachers every week was life changing. Was not normal lessons. They are life changing lessons. But Tony, he would play things that are technically challenging, but it didn't sound like like he might do a role that is impossible to do, but it's because he wants to play like a marimba, like a melody.
Right.
Everything had a. I think I think Tony's chops was a result of was like a collateral benefit from the necessities that he had to play the music that he was playing, and now some people get it mixed up and they got all this technique, but there is no music. One of the frustrations that Gary Chafee had was people would study the materials and get the. Oh, first of all, if you can play anything on those books, it's already an accomplishment. Okay, just play on the pad is okay, great. You can play some really hard, but where's the music?
Right.
There's no
Well,
music.
I know what Adam. I know what Adam's going to say before he says it. He's fond of saying, "Way too much of not enough."
Yeah, it's like Elvin's a good example of that. I never spoke to Elvin about any of this, but I got so many ideas from Elvin about polyrhythms. Like here's something. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this at all.
We
Can
should
you
be
hear?
fine on a pad.
Can you hear this?
Yeah, we got it.
So he's something that's on those books that inspired by Elvin. Like like a 21 over 4, right? If you have a 7, right? This is just 7/16. But if we put 7 on each of the half note triplets, you guys know this already, but it's interesting to talk about. But so if I put the 7, 21 over 4 be 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Mhm.
Or if I put a 15 over 4, or 12. But the thing that's cool now is not only those exercises, but just go there and stay there and phrase like that for a long time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So,
it's one thing to be able to hear an odd pattern, but to be able to play musical phrases over it
yeah,
takes some doing.
and using the melodies and
Right,
get the
exactly.
melodies go. And now, what it does, if you let's say I'm playing over Equinox, let's say,
Mhm.
right, the song Equinox, and you take a couple of choruses, and you just stay there for a long time. It's not to be complicated and to play poly. None of that. It's just create that kind of you not here anymore. You create that kind of I don't know how to explain. It's everything's pull, everything pulls back like you were slowing down, and that's the
But you're
reason for
not,
that. That's
right.
the music reason for
And it
that.
engages the listener. When I hear that, I don't want to count it. I know what you're doing, but I don't want to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to hear the music move me and float through it, and those patterns, phrases come out, and it becomes music.
Yeah, my band played. I love this song. It's called "When We Are Free." It's a Pat Metheny song. I love playing three. Three is my favorite meter of all times because the four is on the three is on the four. Is beautiful, right? How does that go, man?
El-
It's a kind of a Elvin. I love Elvin,
Alvin
but
loved
anyway,
three. I know that. Yeah,
yeah. Um, and Elvin did that a lot.
yeah.
He was playing triplets inside triplets inside triplets inside triplets. So you know,
But still, it flowed as we can't. It's easy to get lost in analyzing the triplets inside of triplets inside of triplets. But the thing is, it flowed as music, and he heard it
yeah,
that way as musically rhythmical phrases.
yeah. I tell the students to start very basic. Like if you have 8 note triplets, right,
Right,
and then if I take the left hand out, then it's the quarter note triplets,
right.
right, and then if I take that out again, is that so you'll be
Half
surprised
note
how
triplets.
many young people they don't know triplets. So
Right.
so I go 8 notes. So you have 8 note triplets, quarter note triplets, half note triplets. But what Gary was work with me is once we go to the half note triplets, then you put two beats on each one, 3 beats on each one, 4 beats, 5 beats, 6 beats, 7 beats.
On each half note triplet. Yeah.
So basically, you start phrasing, right?
Right.
It's just a whole, and then you do fives,
It's another
phrasing.
vocabulary. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 over 4. It's like even like if you start playing 5 over 4, it's like Elvin in steroids because now it's really gonna feel like you're pulling way back, right? If you start going, I do that a lot with brushes, because if you play 6 over 4, everybody knows that. It feels good. Thinking, keep boom, 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 bam, boom, 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 boom,
Hmm.
boom,
Hmm.
bam, bam, boom, bam, boom, blah. But the 5 is gonna feel all drunk and stuff. So
Hmm.
I love that stuff. It's unbelievable.
All right, Henrique. Anything else you want to tag on here? We don't have a lot of time. I don't want to keep you too long. You're generous with your time.
I'm gonna be very selfish and ask Adam more questions because here's one of the things that I remember when I saw you playing for the first time. Also, two things you mentioned: playing the room. I think the students now have faced a tremendous challenge about that because I remember the first time I saw Al Foster at the Regatta Bar. I was really talking to him before the gig. He was with McCoy. I was at the arm's length. Regatta Bar, there's no stage, right? When he started playing, his touch was like somebody put microphone and reverb and delay. And no, man, it's just like rice and beans, like right here. And then Billy Higgins. I saw Billy Higgins
Woo!
live up close, burning, soft, the touch. So I think nowadays with the headphones, in-ear monitors, everything, even a rehearsal, you go
Mm,
to a rehearsal, everything has mics. I think people are. It's like this room when students do recital here on the jazz room is a challenge for them because now like you gotta play the room, right? You have to be aware of that. So I think headphones and microphones are taken away from that. The other thing is when I saw Adam play, I never forget this. Like piano has three pedals, right? You can. John Rams is calling. Like you can either have sustain or really dry, right? The piano
right.
piano can be such a huge thing, right? Or can be very tiny. I think great drummers, and that's what I said when I saw Adam, like the drums floating. You had a really, like a piano player. You knew how to make the drums wet and ring or tight, and I think, man, it's the cymbals. The cymbals is our like sustain pedal or something, right? What is your thoughts on manipulating the sustain of the drums to match what's going on with the rest of the band?
Basically, so much of what, this is an instrument, you have to learn how to play the instrument. Of course, it said you hit it, but it's like, how can you touch it? What kind of
Yeah,
touch
yeah,
you can
yeah,
get.
yeah,
I remember a great line from Billy Higgins, and, because his touch was like so beautiful and he had such a transparent sound, he said, "You want to make love to the drum, you just don't want to rape it."
yeah,
And you have to learn to get a good sound, and everything. That's the first thing people hear when they hear you
yeah.
play is your sound. I
That's
know
right.
some guys, they play so much stuff, and it's like, on one hand it's incredible, but if it doesn't sound good, I don't care about it.
Yeah, yeah,
And you have to learn how to adjust your touch. We have to be able to have variances in our embouchure the same way a horn player does. How we can achieve different articulations and things like that. I mean, this is a lifetime journey
yeah.
to achieve something like that.
And to
It's
And
funny
Henrique's
that.
to
point,
sit.
to Henrique's point, you don't learn that with the microphones, man. You
Yeah,
need.
Right.
I love
And
that you said you gotta kiss it because it's so hard for me as I get older to get a ride cymbal because I play a ride cymbal and I go like this, very soft, and if I don't go, I don't want it.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Just
my litmus test when I play a cymbal is, I got to hear how it sounds in context.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nice you can hear a cymbal by itself and go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But I got to hear how it is in the band. And I think I had to deal with a similar reality. Growing up as a kid, I'm playing in a rock and roll band with my friends. We're playing Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Stones, Motown tunes. Then I started playing more jazz, and so it was like, as a kid, if you couldn't hear something, you'd tell people, turn it up, instead of, why can't I play softer and still get it? So you have to put yourself in real situations.
That's right.
Try to play in a trio with piano, bass, and drums with no amplification. Where you have to depend on your ears. and you have to learn to get inside what it is. And
Yeah.
you can think about it, but like anything, you can talk the talk, but unless you're walking the walk, that's another story.
Do you,
And when I got the gig with Stan Getz, it kicked my butt because I had been playing for several years in a trio with John Schofield and Steve Swallow. Electric guitar, electric bass. I'm basically the quietest person up there. And now I'm in a situation that's totally acoustic. Acoustic tenor sax, piano, acoustic bass. Stan wanted all that, but he wanted it down here. And that was really, for me, a real wake up call because I had to learn how to get in and under. And Stan said something to me, this guy, he was maybe the greatest natural musician I ever played with. He said, I like it when a drummer comes up from under me, not coming down over me.
That's great.
And Stan Getz, it's very deceptive because if you hear him on a record, you hear that beautiful tone, and everybody thinks, oh, it's so gentle, so soft and caressing. He had that character, and he was so loud.
Big sound.
You
wow.
couldn't, massive sound,
Yeah.
Wow.
massive.
That's what I
You
noticed
played
when I
a
saw
number.
him live. I was expecting wispy, and he
Oh,
had that
no, man.
gigantic sound.
With that
Gigantic.
tone.
Right, with that sweet,
Wow.
It
delicate
was
tone.
like,
Uh,
wow. It was like,
yeah.
damn.
When I
And he had better time than most drummers could dream of. He didn't need anybody up there. He could completely swing by himself. And
yeah.
I think you have to put yourself in situations that demand that you do it in the appropriate manner.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
playing with
it.
acoustic instruments on an unmiked stage is a good start. With a pair of
Yeah.
brushes in your hand, maybe, and
And
Yeah.
then do it
take
and
it
learn
from
how to
there.
do
Then
it
learn it
with
with sticks.
sticks.
Yeah, but
You
I
know,
feel most guys my age in the old days, we most of our careers, unless you're playing a big stage or a tour, we weren't mic'd. When you go play a
yeah.
Yeah.
club somewhere, the drums aren't mic'd.
You know one thing that's funny? When I saw Elvin live for the first time was already in the 90s. And Elvin, his drums, I went there on the sound check. His drum sounds like timpanis. Everything was ringing. The ride had 30,000 rivets. Right? He was not as loud as I thought.
Hmm.
It's a huge sound. He plays strong. He's loud sometimes, but he's not as loud as I would thought he would be. But
Right.
it's a big sound, and I remember watching him like he would be crashing a cymbal and then letting the stick go. Everything was loose. Everything was loose. And it was this huge sound. And I didn't feel like putting earplugs or
It's not
starting
ugly.
myself. It was very warm.
It's big
Adam,
sound, but it's not ugly. It doesn't hurt your ears.
you
You don't want
have
to turn it down.
that. Adam has you
Well,
remind of Elvin a lot, but
Well,
uh,
I have all the people that I love have informed what I do. Know them, know me.
Hmm.
I've stolen from many. That's research. If you steal from one, it's plagiarism. But if you steal from many, it's research.
And that's what we all do.
Yeah.
All right, Henrique de Almeida. What's your website again?
thedrumsetcoach.com.
And there's all kinds of great videos
Yeah,
and
yeah, that
lessons,
it's
and it's a full-blown school with a lot of stuff.
yeah, it's the courses that I designed for Berklee. The first one they got 93%, and I got 7%. So I said, no, I'm gonna design my own course, and I'll keep it. So they are
There
in
you
there.
go. Right.
We teach people from all over the world online, and then we have a brick and mortar school. The Drum Set Coach Academy is
Right.
the headquarters of the drum. So we have an online school and a brick and mortar school. And if you listen to this before June, this is 2025, the last week of June, we have a wonderful summer camp with Dave Garibaldi for a whole week, and all that information is on the webpage. And that's what we do. We have books at Hudson Music, Carl Fisher, Hal Leonard. Just check out the drumsetcoach.com. When you have the jazz room, every 6 weeks we have jazz concerts here We host clinics. We had Isaac Jamba not too long ago. We had Bill Gibson, Mark Walker, David Garibaldi, and my band, the Truth Project Band, plays here. So it's a nice little venue. It's in Palmer Lake, Colorado. So if you're listening to this and you're in Denver, Colorado Springs Monument, Palmer Lake, check us out. And it was an honor to hang with you guys, Michael and Mr. Nussbaum. Man,
Well,
I gotta hunt you down.
well, man, all power to you, man.
Same, all power to you. In a time
Yeah.
when everything's diminishing and everybody's complaining, you can't do this and you can't do that, you're doing it, man. You've said, to hell with it, I got an idea, I got a concept.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
God bless. Bye.
Okay.